notes here that so you guys have all this stuff actually. Take a look at it. So yeah, what I want to do here is sort of get some creative writing prompts going and some ideas that you can generate your own prompts. And I thought if we had time, maybe we could sort of create a story on the fly over here, or maybe create sort of a world, sort of world building wise. Or if anybody else comes up with anything that might be fun in the meantime, we can definitely do that as well. All right, so I'm going to start with what I have written down here, which is world building. My Little Pony is interesting as far as world building goes because, as I said before, we're already writing in this world that exists. You know, there was the Bible from the Warren House where she laid out all the rules, and then there have been the additions and changes onto it in later seasons. And there's also materials like the comics and things like so on that getting a little bit more into the background and so on. But there's still a lot of details that we just don't know. You know, where did Celestial come from? What's outside of it? What are the other kingdoms like? What happened in the 1,000 years after the Spanish? There's all kinds of things, history-wise, geography-wise, and even just sort of details of everyday life that they aren't showing us because, like for example, how does it start? Technology can vary from episode to episode. You know, where if you write a fan fiction where somebody has a TV in it, are people going to look at that and be, think that doesn't fit? I mean, so there's still a lot of world building that you can do within the rules that we have already laid out by what's canon. But the other thing about world building is that if you're writing an alternate universe fic or science fiction, or maybe you're going past a little bit, where you actually are creating it, and then that's more the traditional sort of style. Or if you're a crossover, say, or create your own world where crossover can fit. It could be another way of world building. So I thought I'd start out by taking a couple of lists of questions regarding world building, and just going through a couple of points, maybe throwing out to the room here if anybody has any ideas that I think might make for an interesting twist maybe to the world that we already know. So, let me see. I'm going to start out with peoples and customs. I'm actually getting this list from a website. This is the URL that we want. If you Google fantasy world building questions, it'll probably come up. Okay, so here's a good question. How do most ponies take a living? How many ponies on the show do we know actually have jobs? Not very many. So how does your average everyday pony like where you would have? We'll start with Weavers here, and then
we know from the show that there are some jobs like the sofas and quilts guy, and we know that he works with Mr. and Mrs. Pie and Chicken Corner. So there are different jobs, and since they have currency, they have to make work to earn their living. I think if you look at Ponyville, we will probably the most of the citizens of Ponyville are farm workers, since Ponyville has the apple orchard and probably a carrot farm from Carrot Top. And we see a big orchard in the episode Winter Wrap Up, where they move the snow away, so there are probably more orchards or farms around Ponyville, so I think most of them are farmers. If you look at Manhattan and the more upper class cities, we see taxi drivers, we see different kind of shops. So yeah, they are all having some kind of job, hopefully.
And did you include that?
Yes, bouncing off of what you said, since they do have a set of currency, it implies that they have an economy. So obviously they have to have like jobs that pay. Say for instance, like we get a few like hints and stuff that Rainbow Dash is on the weather team. So weather has to be some kind of like funded job or whatever you want to call it. And And then you have like the cakes and how the exchange of bits go to the bakery and like baked goods and all kinds of food. So there's obviously all that too. So mostly the essentials and then whatever recreational stuff that they have as well.
Currency's always interested me because all we've ever seen are these big gold coins that they carry around with them, these bits. Like we don't know if they come in different denominations, if they have paper money at all. And it seems really impractical if you had to carry around like 50 bits just to go shopping with you in this big bag, but I don't know. Did you want to say something?
I believe that Equestria is not only has a main currency like the bits, but I think also there are other things that add into this currency. For example, the gems. Like Rarity just throws a bunch of gems at the hotel guy, and he's like, "Wow!"
Yeah.
So I would say that the paper money is represented maybe in gems and like the small coins, but not to the extent that we have like up to €2, but maybe from the way you see it, it could maybe go up to 10 or 20 an hour.
And maybe they supplement the currency with the barter system.
We know that most ponies get their job, choose their jobs by their talent, like Rarity making dresses, and Rainbow Dash kicking clouds, and Applejack just selling apples. It's wonderful, but yeah, first by Applejack she can sell like apples and get coins for it, and then buy apples to eat them. I don't know, but what would be with like ponies like Snips and Snails or yeah, those ponies who are a scooter, if she had a scooter, Kitty Mark.
Well,
She could carry ponies around, but I think some ponies have cutie marks that don't make a living. What would happen to them? Do they have, are they helped by this equestrian state?
They might be. I mean, there are lots of signs that that there is a sort of utopian type, economy, but
yeah, but there seems to be just an endless flowing amount of money, because what does Stray have to?
she has a stipend.
Yeah, but she's not really at home waiting for people to like. She can go anywhere she wants at any time. So
Spike's job.
yeah, no, there must be any way ponies that don't do it.
I wanted to say that, I think Rainbow Dash's cutie mark doesn't represent necessarily what they're making, but her racing abilities. So even though her cutie mark does not really give her a job opportunity, she chose another job that she's still good at, even though it's not her primary talent.
I have a theory that it's very community-based, as long as you help out the rest will help you out as well. So, for example, everybody might not necessarily make many bits, but because you help certain, for example, farms with providing water for the crops and such, they might provide food and such in return.
Yeah, I mean, there have been lots of suggestions that something like that might be the case, especially when you look to someone like Fluttershy, who, by all accounts, she may be a caretaker for animals. Maybe that's her job, but it could also just be that because she provides for the animals and with the forest nearby, that she's sort of supported that way. Okay, I think I'm going to move on to another question here before we go too deep in this, unless somebody else has something they really wanted to say. All right. Okay. All right. Here's an interesting one. What eating utensils are used? The interesting thing about this is, unicorns have the advantage of their magic; they can pick up a fork and eat with. Pegasi can kind of maybe use their hooves while flying, but what about earth ponies? Do they just eat their mouth? Magnets.
Yeah, magnets.
Earth pony magic where they can grip things with their hooves. Why not?
Organic magnets.
We saw Applejack eat, but we also saw Pinkie Pie eat. That's like done comes out the next day. But that might just be a Pinkie Pie problem. Not every Earth pony can do that. We saw Applejack in Call of Duty, where she was did not know how. I think everything is somehow making it work, but there are different cultural standards or society standards.
Well, one of my pet theories
So
is always
you
that.
are able to simply eat with your face.
One of my pet theories that there is a little bit of earth pony magic that means they can grip some things with their roots.
And another note, ponies also have this now, so
That's true. That's
you
true.
don't have the rest of the face in the food.
I guess it requires some skill and artistic skill maybe because when Pinky always juggles around with food and makes tricks with it almost, like with cupcakes, she eats it afterwards like when she's throwing them into the air or the apples and I'm like, maybe it's
That's true.
more like an artistic skill you actually have to achieve when you're an earth pony. Well, maybe it's not, maybe it's kind of rude, I always thought that, when you're just eating from the floor, like your normal balls. I always thought that it would be like rude or unsophisticated.
It could be maybe an option that they don't do because it's considered impolite. So before I get one that's a little bit more frivolous, here's actually one that could be interesting. In a situation where maybe you have two different races coming together, like a griffin and a pony or something, are special arrangements necessary for entertaining guests of different species? Taller chairs for, well, okay, this is the example here, but taller chairs for dwarves or for werewolves versus for harpies. Like, that might be something that would lead to an interesting scene in a situation where you have two different races. Like, you know, what if you have a griffin, maybe griffins eat meat, and they come to visit a pony? You know, what do you serve for dinner? Maybe griffins don't eat meat, I don't know. It's another thing to think about. Any other ideas along this line that would be interesting, like different ways species can interact? Nope? All right, we'll move on then. Oh, sorry.
I always wondered about goats.
Goats?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're in the series sometimes, like, they rarely interact with ponies, so they don't speak the same language.
Yeah, there's always that question about the cows. I mean, they seem to speak, but they also don't mind being herded around. So, what's up with that? Let's see.
Pig farms. There's also a thing where if you've actually seen the map of Equestria, you also see like an arrow pointing towards the west where it shows towards the Griffin Kingdom. So there's probably like cultural differences between those different kingdoms. So there might be like things between like their social norms, like they eat meat over there. Maybe places in Equestria, since like we've actually seen the Iron Will and all those other creatures. They might have like little settlements outside of the central Equestria to like accommodate those kind of creatures.
Yeah. And then, you know, how would a pony feel if they went to, say, well, we're not going to stick with griffins all the time, but you know, if they went to some carnivore's dinner, or maybe to a dragon's, they got invited to a dragon for dinner. That would be interesting.
Except I think that like dragons and griffins eat like tofu and not real meat because because they know the other animals have consciousness. It would like kill your friend.
Okay, if you take a step back from just the eating of meat, if we look at the series, we see leather saddles. So they produce leather, which means that they have to kill animals to get their skin to make leather out of it. So,
if you ever want to get an interesting perspective on the world of My Little Pony, ask a vegan. Like, for example, they'll tell you that marshmallows are made out of gelatin, which would be random.
There are vegetarian substitutes for gelatin.
There are, yeah. And, but still, it's something you might not realize when you're reading it. It's like, wait a minute, the leather saddles come from, where do they come from? Maybe they're not real leather, maybe they're a leather tree or something.
And there are the pig farms.
Well, I actually read a theory in a fan fiction where they said pigs are very efficient garbage recyclers, and then they can use it for fertilizer for their fields afterwards. So it might actually be a good All right, third? Okay. I wasn't quite expecting so many people. You do know Jet Animation's with movies. Again. Do you have wireless too? No? Okay. Well, we should be. If anybody has trouble hearing anybody who has an answer, you can go there. All right, go ahead.
I've lived in a lot of farm country, and like a lot of things, they don't usually raise pigs unless it's for like the actual meat and whatnot. They usually use compost fields, like for old, outdated like stuff that they can't use anymore, like the produce that's gone bad. So pigs in their role for just fertilizer seems kind of outdated.
Perhaps.
We also saw flutter.
We got technology here.
Technology. We also saw flutterfly catch worm and fish to feed her animals. Maybe ponies are simply okay with carnivores.
Yeah.
So why not? I mean, they don't produce meat to eat themselves, but there might be a market for that, even if it's little demand for it. So why not?
Why not? Let's see. What was that one? Oh, we have another one. Okay. Well, you go. Okay.
Marsha is also in contact with bears, and what do they eat?
Nuts and berries. Honey, yeah, there you go. Fish.
Fluttershy is also in touch with bears, and what does a bear eat?
I'm not a naturalist, but if I'm not mistaken, bears do usually eat fish, they're nuts, berries. They're not predator animals really in that sense. They don't go around some deer or anything. At least I don't think so. I could be wrong. But I mean, there might be other animals that are that way.
I think it's interesting that in most cartoons where the animals are sentient, fish is still considered like a different category, and it's okay for these animals to eat fish.
Well, until we see the sea ponies, yeah.
Should we do?
That one's interesting, but I think I might skip that one. How do gestures and body language differ between countries, or in this one you could say regions in Equestria or outside Equestria, between species? Are there things that don't matter in one area that are mortal insults in another, eating with the left hand, left hoof, etc.? So if you think about, say a pony was visiting or a griffin was visiting the pony kingdom, what might be a gesture or saying that they might think is okay that ponies really take the wrong way? Let's start with you. Yeah, microphone. Get through, I guess. Okay, that works.
Okay. So we've seen the show a lot of times and I've actually seen a few of the interviews from like the writers, that they try and incorporate a lot of the body language into the echoings to show like how they feel. Like drooping of the ears to show sadness or displaying back aggression, that kind of thing. Especially with Pegasi, and that's what really interests me. Like their wings are really incorporated into their body language. So seeing that and like maybe between just a common one that I've heard of griffins and Pegasi, how since like they might incorporate their wings into the body language a lot. So something like splaying back the wings or like flaring up or around to show like dominance or predatory instincts. That could be like taken the wrong way between like the different cultures depending on if griffins are more aggressive.
I suppose I should probably throw in a quick reminder here that we're a family convention, so make sure everything we're talking about is just, something I probably should have said at the beginning, but anyway, next,
We've seen like Manhattan, well, this was like gestures and stuff, but we've seen Manhattan where the orange ponies are acting very in a high society and watching what they eating, how they are eating. And Applejack has serious problems with it because she just grew up in a farm family and like she doesn't know what she's supposed to do. And I think the diamond dogs, for example, they live underground and they're very rough and rarity is different. So we have a lot of different things, not between ponies, but mostly between the cities and the races.
Yeah, that's another good point. We actually have seen a little bit of this difference in cultures and gestures between the different cities when Applejack went to Manhattan. maybe it would be interesting to see what it'd be like the other way around. I mean, other than backseat, which is a slightly different case. But we have a person in the back here. If you're loud enough, maybe we don't need the microphone. Okay. Okay.
Maybe just in that world, the nervous systems of higher creatures are built slightly differently than for ape-based humans. So their language is starting from the body language up to higher and higher abstractions don't tend to diverge. So if you can like for example in Douglas Adams' reverse it's a very famous
Watership Down, right.
with some problems about can communicate with lots of other species, even including the predators, if they are willing to listen. So maybe they don't have three different languages like humans do, because the humans tend to separate into groups based on its language and natural tendency to diverge. So maybe in Equestria, just if you speak very simply, you can talk to almost anything what is at least a bit sentient.
Okay, so if I can recap that, hopefully I understood you correctly. What you're saying is that the communication in Equestria is less a matter of language and more a matter of sort of intention and gestures and so on. And so the different species are able to talk to each other based more on that rather than so they would still be able to understand and communicate each other that way. Or
Well, might be, but it might even be that simply the encoding of the meanings does not diverge as much as with humans, and it behaves more like DNA, which is almost compatible everywhere.
Well, there's another question on here which might be interesting. Is how many languages are there in Equestria? I mean, we know there's what we'll call English. Obviously, it's going to be whatever show dub it is. It's going to be that English. 42 for each language. Could be. We know there's fancy, so you know, or French, I guess, since there's French couture. Oh yeah, it's the magics. Of course, then you have to ask where these people are, where they're speaking these languages. Let's start with you, Ali.
Like you've got bunny and eagle and everything, and beaver and other languages, for example, Fluttershy can. And we've got like Pinkie Pie who can talk to, I think Pinkie Pie can talk to anything and talk with. Like we don't know if the wasps actually talk to her, it's creepy. I think there's just one English with accents between the ponies. Maybe there was something before that, but I think it's just every animal has their own language, and like cows, I think they have cow in English.
Did you have?
In the show, we also see Photo Finish, for example, who has a German accent, even in the English world. So there has to be different languages.
Right, and Apple Bloom was speaking French, the Cutie Box. So, Joe?
Yeah, in that episode where Apple Bloom spoke French, I'm curious, what does she speak in France? Which language does she speak there? German, English?
Old French.
Old French? Okay. We also know that there's the Breezy language.
Which language?
The Breezy language.
Oh, Breezies, yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's some kind of animal language, because Fluttershy is able to communicate with all animals, but we know that Pinkie Pie can't speak hummingbird. She says that she wished to be able to speak hummingbird. And I don't know if it counts as an own language or just Fluttershy's talent to communicate on a higher meta level with the animals.
Yeah, and we know that Pinkie Pie speaks Spanish, I think. In this party song she had with Cheese. Was it Spanish in the end?
Yes.
Or something? Not
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe it's just in this whole Canterlot kingdom there is the English language and maybe some dialects maybe. And
Or Canterlot voice.
yes, the Canterlot voice. But I really know that these animal languages are more like a meter language because I don't actually think that we, well, besides Angel, we heard them actually talk. Angel talks, I guess.
Angel talk?
Yeah, he makes noises.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
it could just be like body language too. I don't think Fluttershy necessarily speaks to them like in a language, like with words, but she definitely understands them. I mean, she speaks to them, but probably more based on body language, like a person who's really good with animals, like here as well. Let's see. There's a lot of questions here that I could talk about. Okay, here's an interesting topic. What are the society's mores regarding courtship, marriage, and family? Is marriage primarily a civil or religious institution? This leads into thoughts about things about marriage, things about family. I mean, obviously we've seen the big royal wedding, and we have married couples. But do you think your average Boney wedding ceremony is going to be a lot like ours? Or are they going to have their own traditions or their own sort of standards or ideas?
We've never seen a church in Equestria.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
So, and even the royal wedding, when royalty weds here, always a really, really high religious guy makes the ceremony. And in Equestria it was Celestia, the highest political ruler and not a religious ruler. So I don't think that they have this religion stuff.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like to equate the princesses to gods or goddesses actually. And you know, they like to sort of treat that as a religion. We had one question in the back before we move on here.
The interesting question would be, what is the unanimous theme of wedding in our world? Because I know there are certainly different cultural differences within Germany, what traditional wedding should look like, and if we go around Europe, there will be many more, and just ignoring the East and South America, for example. And so it's very difficult to classify what is a wedding. So without the boundary in front of God, which is the Christian definition. So yeah, it would be the question of what is the religion within Equestria, and just as you say, there might be the sisters or something else.
Actually, that's a great way to sort of collect ideas if you're looking, is to just take a look at other cultures that you might come in contact with, or maybe do a little bit of Wikipedia searching or whatever, and see what other cultures here on Earth might do that you might be able to then adapt to your own writing. Like maybe you want to see a Saudi Arabian wedding or something like that, or maybe you want to see a Griffin wedding and you decide that it would be a good idea to look at how they marry in India or something like that, and sort of adapting that. You wanted to say something?
I think the ceremonies and all the things are like original ceremonies we would have with religion, but they are like without it. Just like a wedding, it's for the people, and they celebrate for themselves, not in front of any god. And Celestia might be as high as the Pope on a level, but there's nothing above her. Like they don't. You could say she's like the Aztec gods, when the people praise the sun because it went on every day.
The Aztec culture is another one that might be a fertile ground if you want to explore new settings. I mean, we've seen Alizado, and obviously there's some kind of Mesoamerican setting where all that takes place. Maybe it might be interesting to explore who lives there, you know, where are these ruins from, what kind of culture did they have. Did you want to maybe pass it up on this way? Did they have pony sacrifice?
We have to look at how our wedding tradition started. The church first were married, the people who kept record of who got married, and in ancient times or well, 1,000 years back, it's simply where the marriage was made official. Let's keep it average. So it was never really a religious thing, and wedding in the traditional sense were only consumed by the high society people. My headcanon is that really only unicorns got married because they have that high society.
Also, they have a place to put the ring.
They were only, yeah, of course, that's another thing. But, and so like Sai and Earthquake couldn't even get married because maybe they also were viewed as something lower than the unicorns by the unicorn kingdom, and you literally cannot marry a Sai or a Earthquake for them.
We had one down here and then in the back.
But I mean, if they can't get married, they do take each other's name, right? We do have families.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we obviously have Mr. and Mrs. Cake, right? Pumpkin and Carrot. Now, no, Pumpkin and Cup, right? Cupcake. Now the question is, what was Cupcake's name before she got married?
Yes.
I mean, her cutie mark is Cupcake. Was she Cupcake and they just happened to have the same name, or was she like Cup of Flour or something?
I was also sort of wondering always what other ponies do with their rings, if they do have rings, if they do get married. If Pegasi would have them fastened around their wings, or earth ponies around their feet or something, something that would fit them better. And I also thought about a church pot, if you're lacking that religious background, but since Equestria is a world where you have the forces of harmony and friendship and love through cadence, we can actually see love interacting with ponies, and you can see hearts appear, and it's something that actually is a power that is recognized as a real power, not just something transcendent. So maybe that is actually something that can provide such a religious background.
And it's also what the changelings feed on food, so it's obviously something that's tangible. In the back there. Just want to have a back there.
So on the topic of religion, we also have to keep in mind that even before Christianity, religion was something for, like, to give people a belief or a hope in, to explain something. So if you had a lightning storm, you wanted something, you wanted to explain, you wanted to know why. In Equestria, we don't really need that because we have princesses who are pretty much, who can basically explain most of it. I mean, until now, there have been things that they didn't predict, but when it was happening, they were always able to explain it to some extent. So there's no real reason to get a religion because they don't need to believe in something. They can just believe in the princesses, and that way they kind of are gods.
But then that raises a question: if the princesses have all the answers, then what's the point of science in that society? I mean, do they really? Is it really just the basic forces that the princesses explain, and then everything that has to do with technology is what the pony scientists investigate? Are there pony scientists? I mean, we've seen Twilight try to do science. I wouldn't exactly call her methods rigorous, but is it really then just technology, engineering, or is there actually still some investigating of how the world works? Let's see, we have one more from the back here. Do we have one from the end? I don't know if you might have to come to the microphone. I don't know.
There actually might be somewhere in the topic of magic to explore, like that spell that Stasmo Bearded didn't finish in his life, that kind of stuff.
That's true. They're magic, investigating magic as a force. Sort of blending the idea between what makes a wizard, what makes a scientist. We had a couple of people over here who want to say something, and then I think we might move on to a different question.
Are there actually about
Yeah, there are.
So we are talking now about the difference between science and magic in one world and how to explain it all this. Well, it's not easy. I tried it to explain it in my own fanfiction, and you always came to some limitations from science, which is not easy to explain for the usual reader to make a reasonable explanation of what magic can do. So I think the purpose of science in Equestria is, for example, to create or to how do I have to explain it? Well, we've seen the huge I don't know the English word, dam for water, for electricity.
Yeah.
So they was it just this? Okay, so we've seen this huge dam, and to create something this big, they need advanced mathematics, they need architecture and different kinds of sciences.
Mm-hmm.
And my question was, when I saw this, do they actually produce electricity, and where do they use this electricity? Because there are not much electric devices, and we've seen tanks, propeller thing, and it seems to work with some kind of stored magic, crystallized magic. I believe it is magic filled in a kind of container to use it without a unicorn for everyone to use it. So I think the purpose of science is to create things that magic can do, and to enhance the possibilities of magic, like creating a container to hold the magic.
Worlds where magic and technology intersect have always been really fascinating for me. There's an entire genre called spellpunk, which is a lot of these kind of stories, like what happens when you take magic out of your medieval setting and sort of advance the technology. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's one of those things that I think the people who animate and write the show aren't terribly focused on keeping consistent. So you'll have a lot of times where they'll go out of their way to make something not electric, like they'll have a lantern instead of a light bulb, and in the very next episode they'll have a light bulb. Maybe if they do run off magic, that might be something to explore. Like who built that dam and why? Is it to generate electricity? Is it to stop flooding in the areas below it? Did they just want a big pool for wildlife or for fish or whatever? And these are all sort of topics you can explore and have your story set at. You could maybe have a character who works the dam or built the dam. You could maybe have a pony who's like a repair pony who goes around fixing these magical devices. So you've already found a way to generate characters, settings. You wanted to go ahead and
what I wanted to say was a few things. So first, there was a famous author who said magic is distinct. You can't differentiate between a very high form of technology and magic. So it's also the question, what do you define magic? So in my view, what ponies consider magic is just another force of nature in the world, and since the last 5 million, every kind of pony has magic, even earth ponies and Pegasus. So I think science in their world is just trying to understand their nature, including magic, and trying to apply it. So that's the basic definition of what is science. And so I don't see a big difference between science and magic.
Yeah, the quote in question was from Arthur C. Clarke, and it was, "Sufficiently advanced technology will be indistinguishable from magic." And if you've never read Arthur C. Clarke, you might recognize that quote from the Thor movie. But But yeah, that's an interesting idea. What if magic is really just one of these, like a fifth fundamental force, and just ponies have this natural way of harnessing it, but there's also, we can go deeper into that and explore it. Go ahead.
With Celestia and Luna having all the answers and magic happening, there was never really a need for an industrial revolution or something of the kind. We saw in a few fanfictions, also for the Equestria, that it did happen and could happen, but the need needs to arise.
Yeah. Fallout Equestria, I've actually unfortunately never read it, but it is a wonderful example of world building. It must be to have so many sub-fictions set in the setting. So, did you have something you wanted to add to that, or no? Okay, you look like you're raising your hand. Okay, let's see.
Maybe with the naming of ponies.
Naming of ponies. Okay, yeah, sure. We'll talk about that. Yeah, so the naming of ponies is always one of those things that makes perfect sense from a toy selling standpoint, but from a coherent world standpoint, maybe is a bit tricky to understand, wrap your head around. Like, for example, anytime you name a pony something that then ends up relating to their special talents or their cutie mark, how does that happen? Is it a matter of a self-fulfilling prophecy, which I'm sure in a lot of cases it is? Okay, Applejack lives with a family of apples, and you know she has an apple cutie mark because that's what the family does. But what happens when it takes sort of a left turn? Like we've seen Rarity's parents; they're not exactly high society. We don't know what their names are canon-wise anyway, but it does seem like naming their child Rarity might come a bit out of left field, or even Sweetie though. So let's you had something to add to that?
I have a theory that when a child is born, the family is visited by some kind of old wise magic pony who has the power to foretell the destiny of the child, and then names the child instead of the parents.
Yeah, there are a lot of fantasy settings where that sort of thing gets used as well, and that it is. I don't know this first. Yeah, that might. I mean, we haven't seen it, but maybe we will see it. For those of you who have a better memory than me, in the episode where we first saw the Cave Twins, were they given their names already when they were born, or when they were born they already knew it was Carrot Cake, Pound Cake, and Carrot Cake? Pound Cake. Right. Right, carrots. Okay, go on. I lost my train of thought.
Yes, besides the fact that all children are named after their future kitty mark, future talent, we know, if you take out Mr. and Mrs. Cake, that there are no forenames and last names, because we have Apple Bloom, we have Applejack, so if we suppose that Apple is her forename and Jack her last name, why isn't Apple Bloom Jack, or Big Macintosh Jack?
Or maybe Applejack's name is Applejack Apple, and they just make use of it.
So Apple Bloom is Apple Bloom Apple, and Big Macintosh Apple.
Yeah.
So what is Twilight Sparkle's last name? Is Sparkle her last name? It doesn't make sense in much cases, in many cases.
Well,
And,
that is another interesting question. We don't have canon names for her parents. No, we don't have canon names for her father because it was old name and names. But her mother has been performed as Twilight Bell.
Twilight Bell.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another thing.
Well,
yeah. I mean, in the game, the shop is called Twilight Father's Shop, and it mentions in the text something about Nightlight. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes those names can be believed, but anyway, who have we heard from you? We haven't heard from you yet, so.
Yeah, I guess that they don't have a forename and a last name, but a complete name without a family name. Well, the Apple family has the Apple family name, but it's not attached to the name itself. It's just the Apple family. That's what they do. So,
like there might be certain naming traditions that go in from families, but not necessarily strict for surname, last name. In the very back there.
For the family names, I was thinking that it could be thematical, because with most some way or another, as was shown in the finale. What if some sort of link in, what's the word, that after birth the parents have some sort of magical epiphany, that they somehow sense something about the child, and that brings into their name.
And I feel kind of sorry for that one. Well, maybe they have that epiphany, but then they decide whether they want to use it or not. I don't think we've heard from you yet, so.
Well, with the last names, maybe, I mean, in like medieval times, it was in many places it was like that people didn't really use last names for the most part, and just like the profession became part of the name. Like you were Smith, you would be called Smith. You were Miller, you would be called Miller. Maybe that's kind of the same thing here, that you can tag on your something that relates to your profession once you have it. So that it would be a kind of a way out of this nonsensical thing they have going on in the show with the names. That maybe they just tag on the names of their profession once they have it.
Yeah, I personally think it is something like that. There's certainly thematic naming, but some people may choose to carry on a certain surname. I think the examples right now. Let's see, who was first? Well, you have the microphone, let's you talk.
I think with the nicknames that they choose, that the friends use among each other, with Rainbow sometimes being called Rainbow and sometimes being called Dash, and Dash apparently not being as if we were, it's not the same thing as it would be if we called someone their last name.
I don't know,
It still feels like a nickname.
I've had lots of friends who would call each other by their last name as their nickname.
But that usually has a different feel to it, and I thought anyway, I thought that on the show it seemed like almost the same thing. So I felt like that was something that hinted towards both of the parts of the name compound being equal to each other, and you can just pick whichever you prefer to be called by in everyday life. And I think that there's a completely different fandom, but Tolkien had a similar problem of explaining why elves were also often named something that later related to their destiny or to something that they did later in life. And there the explanation is just that elven mothers have this inborn instinct that they have when they name the child, but it doesn't mean that they have any foretelling talent or anything. It's only about child naming and doesn't apply anywhere else.
Right. So something like that magical epiphany there. I think you meant that here, but you know, take the questions that we were just about.
Yeah, I would say that we also kind of have to talk about expectations. If you're born with a name, then you're probably going to have to do something with it later on in your life. And it gets likely that that is something you're good at, just because you do it a lot. If you're born with the name Applejack, and you live on an apple farm, it is unlikely that you're going to go out into the big city and become a model. You're going to, at some point, work on the apple farm.
What if your name is Cheese Sandwich?
Because of the long line of sandwiches. Peanut butter,
cucumber sandwich.
Cucumber.
I know, I just think that with this name, especially if we don't actually consider the last name and first name, so one of the parts always stays, that would make it kind of that the job will stay in the family, and that would also kind of the talent.
Yeah, it was what I mentioned earlier about it being a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you have a certain name and you're in a certain family, you're expected to sort of grow into that. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers, which actually does a good job of exploring this topic about how certain people, while they may seem exceptional, they actually, because of the circumstances that they were raised in and that they came into themselves, they actually are almost mathematically forced into this this role that you might not expect, that we might see as an outlier, but actually is a lot of contributing factors feeding into it. So it could very well be that even if you have a name that might not seem like it would be fitting with the rest of your family, that there still are factors that sort of push you into it. Let's see, I think the red back here, I don't know if we can pass the microphone over there. Maybe I can just need the mic. Here, I need the mic. Maybe I'm
I would try to change relationship between families. So we knew that the orange family and the apple family are related, and it's also been implied that the pie are also related to the apples, and which gives way to another thing that Pinkie Pie is living in a cake shop, so it makes sense for her name, but the rest of the family works on a rock farm. So that's a bit off the naming. Yeah, Maud Pie, maybe, but her sister Dinky and.
In case some people might not know, mud pie is actually it's a dessert in the USA. So that's actually where she gets her name from. It's mud pie. It's I want to say it's like a cream cake of some kind, or an ice cream. You know, maybe? No? Okay. But it is actually a thing. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that? Okay.
Thank you. You earlier mentioned that when you are born into a certain family and you get a certain name, like Apple Bloom in the Apple family, you said that would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, if you think about it, is it possible to change that? Is it maybe if you rebel against your family, you are not happy with your family, or you run away? Yes. Is it possible to change that? So is there a certain amount of talents you can get, or is it possible that you have endless possibilities to get your cooking mark, and once you get it, you're not able to change it? So we will never know if it's possible to change cutie marks.
Yeah. That's a topic I really wish we could see on the show. Is somebody who has a cutie mark and then later on in life goes to do something that's completely unrelated to it. Because I think it is a really big open question that fan fiction also can provide answers for. And that's a really interesting topic you can go and explore. What if you do find out later in life that your special talent isn't what you thought it was, and you end up wanting to pursue this new role in life?
Follow up on Apple Bloom.
Huh?
Follow up on Apple Bloom.
Okay, there's a microphone. Yeah, we'll just one quick and then we'll go back to the other.
Well, we actually see Apple Bloom hanging out with Sakura, and in the other episode, her talent then seems to be alchemy or something of the kind.
Yeah.
That's not Apple related.
It could also be carpentry related.
Well, yeah. Her original name was Appleseed, and maybe it's the alchemy was also plant related. So
yeah,
we can argue that it is actually again something related to her name.
Yeah. Before we continue on with you, there have been times in the show where the cutie mark has forced a certain role or personality. In the Magical Mystery Cure, for example, or in the Cutie Box. But the question is, and in the Cutie Box, it seemed to imply that you couldn't change a cutie mark. But the question is that just the result of those particular magical instances, those spells, that disease, or is that something that actually is a factor in the pony's life here?
Well, Rarity's cutie mark actually told her to find gems, and Rainbow Dash cutie mark they'll have a race,
Sure.
but it wasn't the case in the Magical Mystery Cure. That's what your cutie mark is telling me. No, that's not what your cutie mark is telling you. You have to find gems, not make dresses.
That's true.
Well, I have to check the wrong saying that.
Well, I guess the cutie mark is much more of the thing you most enjoy, and that's therefore you find your cutie mark, and it doesn't, that's not your profession then. So, and therefore the names are a bit off sometimes, because when you take vinyl scratch, she's not doing.
Well, we should probably stick with canon names.
Yeah,
just
okay.
because we're trying to, the idea I like with world building is to make a world that still fits with the rules that we've seen on the screen, and doesn't clash with it. But of course, you're free to do whatever you want.
Yeah, but there's just the names like Pound Cake. Is it his name? Pound Cake.
Yeah.
Like what do we do? He's like a pound. Maybe he's a fat pony in the future. Great. well, it's a great professional.
It's a baby.
I guess it's much easier when you've got a pony design, for maybe like all C's, pony design, and maybe a cutie mark to then find a name for it.
Yeah, well, let's see, let's have, in the ears here, make sure you're talking to the microphone.
Personally, I think it would make sense for cutie marks to be hardwired because I perceive it as something like a presentation of talents which are written in the genetics, but I see counterexamples in the races because there are old ponies who have their cutie marks linked to what they do in their old age, like old sword and Mr. Freeze, I think, and about at least two more ponies I have seen. So it is illogical to have that cutie mark for your whole life when it only applies very, very late than it really appears, unless you are writing something very ironic and dark when everything really works like that. Your fate is telling you that anything that matters will happen in your own life, and it will be that you will be really good in, for example, blowing extra large bubbles from your water pipe or something like that. In the scene where cutie mark crusaders look for nice stallion for Chile, they are examining one old pony who really has a cutie mark of a pipe blowing bubbles.
Well,
it would really suck to be born with that.
Well, you say that, but what I say is I see a potential for a story there. What if you have a character who gets their cutie mark really early on in life, and they just don't know what to do with it? It's something that they have absolutely no interest in, like blowing bubbles from a pipe. And how do they deal with that? How do they react with that? How do they go through life with never knowing for sure what their cutie mark means? And then when do they come to the epiphany why it's important to them? Why this is their special talent, and why they were chosen to have that cutie mark? So yeah, it would be unfortunate, but it would also be, it could be a very interesting character arc that you could develop in there. Let's see, we had one in the very back there. I don't know if we put the microphone to him. In the meantime, while we're waiting for the microphone,
Okay, so to go into a slightly more different topic, this is just bouncing off of like the naming convention kind of. It always seems like Equestria seems feels a bit too utopian. Like they know exactly what they're going to do. They have their key marks. It ties into whatever their profession or job role would be. I always like to see like themes in fan fiction or any other thing where it goes against that kind of norm. Like you see the problems that actually come from a society like this that are not just swept under the rug.
Right, right. And I think examining the world these take place in sometimes to perhaps absurd levels can expose some of these areas that things might not be exactly as they seem, like we're talking about with the name, the cutie marks. And exploring these cracks in the facade is a really interesting place to take fiction, and it's something that I'd like to try to achieve here with these ideas bouncing around. Let's hear from in the back again.
My idea has more to do with the names again, and it's actually a simple question, but it could have deeper consequences, but simple. Is it possible in Equestria to have her name changed? That would be a very interesting idea, because we know Mayor Mare is there. She has others who presumably also work at something. It could be city administration or something. That in itself
of course, with Mayor, you have to ask yourself, is that actually had a name? And is the mayor of that, her title and her actual name is Mayor, which is also kind of weird. But you want to?
I wanted to say something about cutie marks, something we saw in San Diego Comic-Con at the panel, and I do not want to spoiler anything for people who don't want to be spoiled. Is someone here?
Yeah, I something you want to allude to, or?
Okay, then I'm not going to continue. Just the season 4 finale, we saw that their cutie marks were actually removed from them when they lost all their inherent magic. And do they lose their special talent too? Or, I mean, they all seem pretty lethargic about it, but still were able to move around as they pleased. Did they lose the special talent, or I don't know?
That's a very good question. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. They never really had an opportunity to use their special talent in the time they didn't have their cutie marks. But at the same time, was Pinkie Pie able to cheer up Fluttershy, for example? So there might still be something there that you can dig out and think about. Or the fiction I wrote most recently actually dealt a little bit with the aftermath of that. How do the ponies that went through that experience process it? In my case, it was about Twilight and her suddenly having all this magical ability. But it could also be about one of the other ponies and how did you feel to lose your special talent? And how did you cope with that loss? And then how did that change you moving on from there? We in a school shirt here in the back.
So if you think about it, cutie marks are actually really weird because only ponies have them. For example, a pony would be like, Rainbow Dash would be like, oh yeah, this cutie mark tells me I'm really fast, and that's what I'm really good at. And the Griffin would be like, so what? I'm also fast, and I'm also really good at origami or something. Or a changeling, for instance. It would be like, oh, you have that cutie mark? I have it too. I also have this one, and this one, and this one. And I can do everything.
Yeah.
So, in essence, a cutie mark is essentially sort of a limiter to tell ponies you can do this, and this is what you're good at, and this is what you'll be good at for the rest of your life. And if there's something else you want to be good at, you'll just have to find it out yourself, but I'm not going to tell you anything. just do it the old-fashioned way. Lazy bum.
I would love to see a story where somebody gets a cutie mark, that's one thing, and then they think that's their destiny, and they do that one thing. And then later on in life, they realize that it's something completely different, but the cutie mark still applies. Like, stupid example, say Vinyl Scratch's music notes. What would be a good example? Doctor Who's, not a canon character, but good enough. Yeah, time travel. Like maybe he sees it, and so he thinks his talent is to make hourglasses, and then later on he finds out he's a diamond movie. I don't know. That's a terrible example. Come up with your own ideas. Let's see, I think we haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, my question would be exactly how the process of getting a cutie mark would be, because the only reference I think is when Twist got her cutie mark in the first season. It was that she told she had an epiphany and then the cutie mark appeared, so it's kind of tricky. If that's normal case that you have to first realize what your talent is and then get your cutie mark, it's kind of a different story to find out. It might be know what it is to get it out from cutie mark Mercedes and how many ways there are to fail it. Yeah.
So what you're asking is it possible that there are characters that, is it possible that there are characters that maybe have gotten their cutie mark without having the epiphany? It just sort of appears one day, and then the rest of their life they're trying to figure out, why is this here? Yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, there's a lot of cutie marks that if you look at it don't really make any sense.
Snips and Snape.
Citizen, well, maybe it's not like. And Snips might be a tailor when he grows up. There's a better example of somebody who has a cutie mark that turns out to be something else.
It was like a rarity.
Yeah.
When she got a cutie mark, she was like, rock. A rock is my destiny, and she had no idea what to do with it. And later on, she figured out it was dressmaking with gems.
Okay,
I see a problem in that there are ponies like Rarity. She's got a nice name, Rarity. But what would you do? It's not dressmaking. Like, if you get what I mean, then some ponies have names that don't imply anything, like Cadence.
That's true.
Cadence is about like thinking music, thing.
Except her real name was Miyamura Cadenza.
But there are like Rarity and Twilight Sparkle. It's got sparkle, you could say, magic sparkles, but it's not like really direct with like but there are some ponies who have like just normal names, not having to do with anything, and then you have ponies who have their name as their destiny and talent.
Pony Joe.
Yeah, but
that's true.
So
it was literally the name.
I think
Donut Joe.
Yeah, and Zikawa is, for example, is like Zikawa for zebra maybe, but is being a zebra a talent?
Well, I would think Zikora's talent is probably actually herbalism.
Yeah, but the name doesn't say anything about
She is in pony.
She has a cutie mark.
And that kind of brings back to the topic of languages earlier. What language does Zikora really speak? Is she just constantly translating into English or pony speak on the fly and just happens to rhyme all the time? What happens if she ever wants an orange? So we've talked a lot about names and cutie marks, but we have about a half hour left. I wanted to see if anybody had any ideas for subjects that they found really interesting that they thought maybe you'd like to talk about some ideas. I saw your hand shoot up back there, Octavia.
So being a fan of biology, there's one thing that always kind of bugged me about the three races. If you presume, there's a theory that means that in a given ecosystem, most animals have the same amount of limbs. Oh, sorry. So yeah, there's this theory that most animals in an ecosystem will have the same amount of limbs. So if you look at mammals, every mammal has 4 limbs. Even whales, they have 4 limbs and a tail. But like, it applies completely. And then you look at the show, and you have ponies and unicorns have 4, and then you look at Pegasi have 6. So what happened to the other 2?
Well, that's an excellent question. Another question that's similar to that is... Another question that's similar to that is what races are ponies' offsprings? Obviously, we've seen 2 earth ponies have a Pegasus and a unicorn as offspring, which implies some very interesting genetics. But yeah, we can go ahead and talk about this subject a little bit. I think can we maybe pass the microphone over here? Right here. So anything you want to add to that?
No, I still wanted to add a cutie mark that someone thought it was something, but then turned out to be something else.
Okay.
And I think it was actually Twilight. She thought her talent was magic, but the symbol of 1 big star and 5 next to it is actually the symbol of the elements of harmony. She found out years later that her talent, or that she's destined to wield the elements of harmony.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then lose them, and then get the keys, and then be power. Yeah. Next to you, you had something to say?
Not really.
Not really? Okay.
Yeah, you earlier mentioned Spellpunk, and I have a great theory from Shadowrun that there are the human race there evolved into some meta races like orcs and trolls, and that's purely through magic, and that could also explain the variance between the ponies, the earth ponies, the Pegasi and the unicorns, since we already know that they are each have a different kind of magic. Maybe it's there through the difference in magic that they have and different outward appearance.
Well, I mean, that would also be implied in Twilight becoming an alicorn. It was shades of her magic that caused her to then have wings. So maybe there's something to that. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I have an answer for our biologist with
Okay.
Octavia. The truth is that they are all born as alicorns and they're taking away their horns and wings to keep the balance between the races. More alicorns.
Like, if you look at the background, there are alicorns.
Well, maybe there are other alicorns in other nations. I mean, we've only seen Equestria. It's possible that, I mean, there was a contest not too long ago where John.
Even the latest comic is elimination.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Oh,
I think I just made a mess here. Oh, well, he's fixing that. I think in one of the books, the tie-in chapter books, they talked about Cadence when they found her was Pegasus, I think?
Yes.
Yeah. And that she later became an alicorn. So maybe there aren't any natural alicorns. Or maybe they all have the potential to be alicorns. I don't know.
We also saw in the season 4 finale that Derek specifically said there are 4 alicorns in Equestria.
That's true. But
so
yeah, that's why I say everything else is an animation error, because we really have to have that statement. And I would advise against writing alicorn OCs because people will have a hard time taking it seriously. But rules are meant to be broken, so if you have a kick-ass idea for an alicorn OC, run with it.
Been there, done that.
And just don't make your plans like me.
Yeah, don't, well, no, not. Yeah.
On the question of alicorns, I always found thought interesting. Can there be male alicorns, or can only females be alicorns? Because, for example, in Sailor Moon, only females can be Sailor Guardians.
That's sexist.
Well, Secret's Blue Blood, and he's not an alicorn, so yeah. And again, if you want to explore different alicorns, I think history might be a really right place. If you set your story far in the past, or maybe far in the future, because we know that Celestia and Luna weren't always in Equestria, but what happened before that? Were there other alicorns? Maybe there were male alicorns. Do Celestia and Luna have parents? Did you want to? Okay, ask me that. And then we'll hear from.
I found the question interesting because Cadence's reason for becoming a princess is that she represents love, but love can't just come from one person, and I personally would have found it make more sense if Shining Armor also was an alicorn or became an alicorn because he also inspired him. So yeah.
That's something you have to talk to Hasbro corporate about. They have to make that choice.
On the matter of alicorns, I think the spell that tries to complete to get alicorn fast from Stars for the Beard. Stars for the Beard is also a male unicorn. So if he completes the spell, maybe he would be an alicorn too, like Twilight.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe Sunset Shimmer could have been an alicorn if she hadn't tried to take over more power than she was ready for. Let's see. Let's hear in the back, and we're just trying to decide whether I should pass my microphone at this one.
Another question I think interesting is when Twilight got her wings, she was called Princess instead of Alicorn. So my question would be, is there a difference between Alicorn status and princesshood?
I do think that's interesting. I think as far as the setting as we've seen it, it's pretty clear that the two are one and the same. But that doesn't mean it always has to have been that way or always has to be that way. I mean, if you want to build a world that's in an alternate history or far past or far future, you could definitely have a place where there are alicorns who are they just are alicorns, they're not royalty. And, I mean, we obviously have princes who are not alicorns. Maybe there are also princesses. Although, I kind of wonder if maybe we shouldn't put too much stock in Prince, Blue Blood being a prince. As the story seems to go that he was supposed to be a duke, but Hasbro would have preferred he was a prince, just because kids don't know what dukes are. So my personal headcanon for that is because there aren't any male royalty. There is a sort of prince title that's actually a duke, but it's not going to be confused with princess because there aren't any male princesses. And Blue Blood's exactly the kind of pony who would do that. So, all right, you just want to ask me?
Again about the GalaCon issue and animation errors. What we saw in the San Diego Comic-Con panel, M.A. Larson had no idea about the GalaCon there, so it was mostly the animators messing with people. No GalaCon there.
Yeah, it's you see that all the time. Some people, sometimes they draw a character and they add wings and a horn and they think it's going to be in the background and then it turns out to be covered, or they think it's supposed to be a Pegasus but it already has a horn, they don't notice it, or they think the eyes are supposed to be going one way and not the other way, and then they start crossing it. Animation errors are really, really fascinating, and that can actually be a good source for characters, is pouring through sort of those backgrounds and finding a pony, maybe one that the fandom hasn't gravitated towards yet, and just sort of thinking about, okay, what's this pony's cutie mark, what's his story or her story?
Dolphin dreams.
Dolphin dreams, yeah. Why doesn't she have a dolphin cutie mark? Does she have a dolphin cutie mark? Well,
Yeah, she has 2 dolphins.
Makes sense.
Isn't her name Caesar?
Yeah, I mean, and I talked a lot here about canon. Canon in this universe is a really interesting thing because you have so many different sources for it, and they more often than not disagree. You know, we have the toys, which will often have things spelled differently, ponies in different colors.
Gender.
And then we have the actual show itself, and of course the names in there are almost never written down, so we never know how they're spelled. And then you have these other sets of toys that are maybe a bit more oriented towards the fandom, where they do include some fandom names. And then you have the chapter books, and the game, and all these different sources. And what I find is really fascinating is what you personally for yourself choose as your canon, and what you choose to intentionally get away from it. And anytime you know you're getting away from what most people think of a canon, if you can highlight that and explain it and say why you're doing that, I always find that fascinating. So that might be something to think about if you're trying to set something in your world, in the world of the canon, and you want to sort of flesh it out. Maybe think about something that is canon that you think doesn't make any sense, and try to change it or give a reason for it or something. Does anybody else have anything, any suggestions? Maybe back on names? Okay, well, I think I can look up one more random topic here. Or I can go with the one I thought earlier. So how does plumbing work in Equestria? Have we seen any plumber ponies? Are there water sanitation areas? We have. What do we think about the poor pony whose cutie mark is a water sanitation plant?
You know that there's a really huge discussion in the German Brony board about toilets in Cloudsdale.
Yeah.
It's like 100 pages long.
No. I don't want to go there. Okay, medicine. Oh, they said that on the German Bronies forum there's a discussion about how the toilets work in Cloudsdale.
Well, now you know where rain comes from.
I'm waiting for you. Alright, well, we have a little bit of time, so I'm going to bring up one more topic that I personally find kind of interesting, is medicine. Is there such a thing in Equestria as magical healing? Because I am of the opinion that we have never actually seen it. We've seen potions, which are kind of magic, and we've seen hospitals and doctors and actual, medical healing. But have we ever seen somebody who's been healed through just pure magic? And if not, is it something that you might think is possible, or is it something that maybe only very powerful unicorns can do? You raised your hand first, I think so.
While Cadence was being impersonated, everybody was okay with the explanation that she was magically healing Shiny Armor's headache.
That's true.
That
That's
was
true.
something that everybody accepted as given, and no one had a problem with that. I mean, there is magical healing.
Well, except for Twilight, who, you know, I mean, maybe because she knows more about magic, she knew that that wasn't possible or was very difficult.
And she also saw the green light and everything
That's
at
true.
the same time. So it doesn't have to be that she was suspicious about the healing of headaches by magic, but just about cadence in general.
Do we think that that ponies actually see that magical glow, or is that just something that the animators put in for us to cue us into the fact that they're using magic? Because I always wondered about that. Why did Twilight?
I think you can see the eyes, could they tell who is using this?
Well, see, that's the
testing
thing.
magic.
Is when Cadence was being impersonated by Chrysalis, her magic was green, but Twilight knew Cadence when she was younger, and you would think that maybe she would have noticed that the color changed. Can the color change? Let's go ahead and begin.
I think that boys can somehow sense that there is some magic, and one instance, I think like it can be hidden because Twilight has used some spells on Flatterschein when she was modeling.
When she's what? Can you maybe talk to the microphone a little bit? Deutsch?
She was
Modeling.
modeling.
Okay, yeah, modeling.
And it was from our point of view, you saw the glow around Flatterschein, but nobody saw that it was magic somehow. So that must be able to be turned off, but on the other hand, they could. Okay, that was also. No, that's the main one. The other thoughts are hard, I think.
Okay. Oh, actually, hold on. Let's hear from the other.
I think maybe you can hide your magical glow if you want to, but I mean that was maybe the case why Twilight got suspicious, because I mean obviously the Cadence was alone, so she didn't need to hide her magical glow. But Twilight saw that and she immediately realized that this can't be Cadence because the Cadence magic is green, I think.
Yeah. Or maybe she couldn't necessarily see it, but like I said before, she could sense it, and she could sense it was different. But then she didn't, like, that was not something she could necessarily vocalize, which is why she didn't go into the chamber and be like, her magic's green, that's how I know she's not green. If we could pass it to the picture. You sure?
She's the devil.
And I mean, obviously, when dark magic took over Rarity, her magic was also green. And with the Alicorn amulet, it was a different color. Was it green as well with the Alicorn amulet? It was red. I thought so.
Twilight also did not say that Cadence was replaced by someone else, but just that she was evil.
Oh yeah,
or
that's
maybe
true.
that she burned evil or something.
But then again, that green color we've seen associated with evil, and she called it dark magic, so why didn't she say she was using dark magic? Kind of makes you wonder.
There are only so many colors. What would green unicorn has as a color of his aura?
Well, we've seen green unicorns, I think. I want to say that one of the unicorn guards uses a green magic in the chamber. Okay. I want to say one's yellow and one's green.
But the colors can't be unique either, because there are also only so many colors.
Oh, there are a lot of colors, but
there are more ponies.
You can't necessarily distinguish easily between them. I mean, just your own computer monitor has like 65,000 colors, so there are a lot of different colors, but you know, it's not going to say if you have two colors right next to each other. So it'll tell the difference. Okay, I'm here with the
Well, I think with the aura, that's just one thing where you have to make up your own stuff because the show is consistent on it. Like in Winter Wrap-Up, Spike realizes that Twilight sees the magic because he sees the aura. And then in other scenes, ponies don't realize that magic is being used despite the aura clearly being there. So this is just one of those things where you have to make up your own stuff.
Then again, he is a different species. Maybe dragons have different affinity to magic.
And now we're getting a code for stories. So that's yeah. Anytime the canon isn't consistent with itself, there's an opportunity.
It's also an interesting point about Spike because there are many instances where he is used to comment on something that is also just shown. For example, when Discord uses his magic to invert their personality, Spike was the only one that talked about this, that the bodies would look pale.
Okay, so we are just out of time, yes? Oh, okay, you have an idea. I thought you were going to tell us what you He's green.
He's evil. With the question if the magic has, if a unicorn can use magic with different color, yes they can, because Twilight and Celestia both used evil magic that was green at the moment, or definitely another color. And when the green unicorn use magic, the magic is green, because when the unicorn use magic, I think their intentions is put into it, like the color main, and yeah, something with this, that I want to do this because I have this reasons, so the magic goes with it and has the color of it.
So you said Celestia and Twilight were using green magic?
Evil magic, and the magic was supposed to be evil, so the magic changed the color. This is false.
See, sometimes you have somebody remind you of something from an episode. Let's see, we have, was there anybody in the back there? Have somebody raise their hands? No? You got, all right, you have a microphone.
I have a lot to talk about.
That's good. I think I have to talk about.
No, especially because the elements of harmony, they're like catalysts for their feelings. So magic is all about feelings, and the stronger you have the feeling, whether it's good or bad, the stronger your intentions are, the stronger the spell is. So it's really plausible that the aura can change when you learn in a different spectrum of the harmony scale, or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, interesting. Let's see, over here, and then I'll move over here. We got about 5 minutes. I don't know if we're allowed to go long. We'll try and wrap it up anyway, because I know some of you want to see some of the other events going on today. I think MAR says kind of coming back.
Yeah. Well, this is called binary. They were all stripped of all their magic, and they could still use the magic of friendship. So it made this that the magic of friendship is kind of different magic. Maybe there exists like team magic, like dark magic, the more normal magic, and magic of friendship, and they all have different rules for each other.
Yeah, I would definitely believe that that's the case. I think that is kind of essential to why the elements of harmony are special, not just some magical artifacts that enhance your power.
If we take that idea that magic is something very personal and something that comes from within a unicorn especially, then we could assume that, the dark magic we've seen Celestia use and Twilight use and that King Sombra seems to be using by default, that could be, we could assume that that's not actually magic that comes from within, but instead is some sort of external power reservoir that you can tap into if you know how, but is possibly corrupting or evil by default. Like you use some sort of power that doesn't come from yourself, and by using this external force, you kind of let part of it inside of yourself, and maybe it'll stay there, so to speak.
I definitely think that's an interesting idea. Let's definitely see some exploration. Let's keep you in the back just to not.
when we talked about the dark, when we talked about dark magic, we actually saw Twilight using dark magic without being taught how to. So I think it's actually some kind of base that we can talk about, like normal is the base, and then we have the dark magic as a base and other magic as bases. So if you really want to do that, you can, because somehow you have those bases in your head as a unicorn. That's my theory on that.
All right. What you have one more?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have a microphone anymore.
The external source of the magic, like the GalaCon amulet Trixie used, it turned red, but it was not inherently evil, even though it corrupted the user. Or magic in general, or power in general, is not evil, it's just how you use it, and it's always said to be easily corruptible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe it's not so much an issue of being evil. I mean, sure, they talked about dark magic, but dark doesn't necessarily need to mean evil. It could just mean it corrupts. All right, I'm just going to wrap things up here because we're just about at the end. I hope you all were able to get some interesting ideas. As you might be able to tell, I think way too much about world building. It's just something I do. But I hope you may be able to bring some writing prompts out of this, some ideas. You can incorporate into your own fan fictions or stories. They don't even have to necessarily be world building. They could be other fandoms as well, but the general ideas still apply. I just want to read something I found online about how you can, if you really are stuck in a rut and don't know what to write about, how you can sort of create some ideas. So the first point is make the context larger or smaller. So maybe think larger, think what's outside of the borders of what you're telling, or think smaller, just try to focus on a certain character or a certain aspect of life. and you might be able to find something there you didn't look at before. Explain common things is very interesting in a setting like this. Whether you're making your own alternate universe or future or past story, or if you're just exploring the world of Equestria as we know it a little bit deeper, explaining common things can be very useful, maybe more as filler than as ideas, but definitely is something that you can incorporate. Make the invisible visible. What that means is take somebody who, like I was talking about earlier, background ponies, like the interview the operator on top of a tea crane, find out how college students game the registration system. These are just some suggestions that you can sort of think about similar ideas in the pony world. Like, for example, the construction worker ponies that we've seen, what's their life like? Mind your emotions, explore your own reactions. If something bothers or puzzles you, find out why. And maybe talk to people who have similar reactions. And then you can explore those feelings in your writing. And maybe some people will read it and then realize, hey, I never realized that I felt that way, but now that I've seen this, it makes a lot more sense. Study the past and the present. How does the history of Equestria, how does our human history reflect on the society we see on our TV and in our stories? Choose things randomly. I love this one. There are many websites and many books, or you can just take a book that's closest to you, open it to a random page, and put your finger on a word. And then think about that word. I mean, it could be, I don't know, Santa Claus, or it could be chair. And they're not always going to help. A lot of times it's just going to be like, ampersand. Okay, that doesn't. But a little bit of randomness can sometimes kickstart your creativity. Store things randomly, sort of a similar idea. Maybe you have a jar of ideas that you can just reach into and pull out maybe a small toy or a button or something. Or you can write down ideas on note cards. And maybe just if you have some smaller ideas but you don't know how to fit them into a whole, you can write them on note cards, mix them up and lay them out and try to tell a story with what you get. Follow alternative paths. This is really interesting when you're looking at sort of alternate ways of telling stories we've already seen, whether they be in the show or fanfics. Or just from a different perspective. Or it could also mean instead of following your usual methods of building a story, of your structure, of introducing the characters and your climax and so on, is maybe to think about how you can mix that up a little bit. Maybe you want to tell your story not in chronological order. Maybe you want to tell it from a first person's perspective instead of a third person. Cultivate weirdos. Well, that's an easy one in this fandom. But yeah, talk to people. Talk to people who might be a bit off kilter and see how they see the world. And that doesn't necessarily need to be the fandom either. Lower your standards, that doesn't mean for your writing. But it does mean that what you think of as inspiration. The examples here says, accept any piece of paper handed to you on the street, read junk mail, watch awful TV shows and ask why they appeal to anyone. Eavesdrop on strangers, maybe within limits. But maybe like people watching could be interesting. Like you say you're sitting at a cafe and you see a couple go by and you think, what would they look like as ponies? Where would they fit in that society? That person over there selling, is that going to be their cutie mark, a pretzel, or maybe they have something else? Make yourself into somebody else. Role playing. Yeah. Like I said before, really good inspiration sometimes from stories. Seek random friends. Scare yourself safely, as in make a list of things that you're afraid of doing and find a way to experience them. And that could be just getting in front of a panel of bronies and holding a workshop with no preparation or idea what to do. And sometimes you get really great things out of that. And the last point I have is keep moving around. Don't ever get fixated on one particular thing. Try to experience as much as possible. Try to write as much as possible. Try to explore different story types. Maybe if you're used to writing sad fiction, maybe try writing a random or a comedy for a change. Or vice versa. You know, maybe you always follow the canon and tell slice of life stories. Maybe think of how you could do an adventure story in that context. If you're used to writing 10,000 or 50,000, 100,000 word epics, maybe try a one-shot, or vice versa. Well, vice versa is probably not going to be But yeah, above all, the one piece of advice I can give to you is whether you're a fan fiction writer already, or whether you haven't tried it yet and want to, or whether you've always had this idea burning in the back of your mind, is just write it. Just get it on paper, get it on digital, post it to FinFiction, as long as it's formatted properly. And you might be surprised. You might realize that, okay, maybe your grammar's not the greatest, maybe your punctuation and spelling can use some work, but there will be an audience for it, and there will be people who might find something they really like in the story you told. So if I have one thing to say to you all, it's thanks for coming, and now go out and write.